Well, Daniel, especially, I know he's like way into his business cards, and we've got like really nice business cards. And I saw you at the Four-Way Foundation, the dinner, and you had a very special business card. And I just wanted you to be able to share that with these guys. I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I've got my regular business card, but it's a You Matter card. And I started this. It's not my idea, but they sent out samples, and they sent out 30 of them, and I thought, that could make a difference. And so You Matter cards are something I've used. I get 10,000 of them printed at a time. That's the only, and I'll say, I'll give it to people, it's You Matter. And the first thing they always do is they look on the back side of it.
Because I literally just did it right before you said it.
I watched you do it. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And, they always look because they think it's going to be something about your business and that type of thing. But there's only 2 words on it. It's You Matter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times I think people, they miss that opportunity. And so it could be a person that's on the street. It could be a homeless person. And I'll have some conversation with them. And
Can I leave them in here?
You bet.
Okay.
I got tons of them. They're specific.
10,000, actually.
Yeah, 10,000 of them, yes. And so, to students. And so I brought them to the Four-Way Foundation and suggested to people that they give them to the people that are they run across in life. And my wife has one on her mirror at home. I think that's so true in today's times where people feel like they don't matter. And you never know. That person could look like they're super successful and everything's going their way, but you really don't know a person. There's that, I think it's out of Cleveland Clinic. They have this video, and it talks about, it's a really powerful YouTube video, and they show these people walking, and then they'll have a balloon above their head, just was diagnosed, told they have cancer, or another person, they just lost a baby, or another person, they just completed a marathon in a good way or bad way, and you never know what people are going through in their life. Mm-hmm. And so the thing about the You Matter card is, it happens to me. And, there was a person downtown in Grants Pass. I wrote an article about it, but it was, he was on the street. It was by the post office on 7th Street, or on 6th Street. And he came up to me and started talking to me. And I didn't give him a You Matter card. I didn't probably give him the time of day. And so then a couple of times later, he came to me again. And we had a conversation, but I couldn't really tell what he wanted. It was just kind of an awkward conversation. And then the next time he saw me, he yelled at the top of his lungs, "Steve Roe, you're a fraud." And I can't even do that this loud because of the fact it would blow the speakers. But it was that loud. And so people anywhere around, I was really embarrassed by this. Mm-hmm. And so I went in the post office and I went down the other way of F Street and went around the block. Yeah. And I avoided him. And then it happened about maybe a week later. And same thing. This Steve Roe, you're a fraud. And so then I was at the corner of 6th and G, waiting for the light to change. And he came up to me. And I could see him coming up to me. And I thought, well, this is not going to go well. It's not going to end well. And he says, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I says, "Really, I don't." He says, "I'm such and such a person." And we were in Toastmasters together. And he says, the thing I really remember that from him is he says, "Steve, I wasn't looking for your money. I wanted your attention." And since that time, I had this conversation with him, and he's in Foundry Village now. I've stayed in contact with him, and so we had conversation with him, and good conversation on the street. And I says, what could I get you? What would you like it was about Christmas time. And he says, "I like harmonica." Mm-hmm. So I got him a harmonica, and then Christy and I were walking down to G Street for dinner, and he comes up to us, and he says, "Can I play a song on my harmonica?" Mm-hmm. And he did, and he's really good on the harmonica. Mm-hmm. And I just, it's again, that you don't know what's happened to that person. And, he went through some personal things, struggles in his life, and his family fell apart for him, and, but he's still a human being. Mm-hmm. And it really made a profound impact on me about that whole story.
Where did your passion for mental health and all that stuff come from?
Well, there goes the whole day. That whole thing. So I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, and we moved there in the 5th grade. And it didn't start right away, but I was one of these youth that didn't fit right in. I was an odd duck. There's no doubt about it. just awkward. And a lot of kids played hockey in the Sioux, and I never was good in sports. Still am not good in sports. But anyway.
Dodged a shotgun slug, so you must be pretty
Have
you tried pickleball?
I need to do something. Yeah, I'm on the treadmill a lot. I work out regularly on the treadmill, and But anyway, there was a lot of bullying that went on, and it usually was primarily one person, but a group of people. And I never had that student that came up to me and says, "You matter." Mm-hmm. I was the person that didn't exist.
Right.
And I researched many, many times in the library. I'd go down and check out the library, because we didn't have the internet back then, and how to commit suicide. Mm-hmm. And, kind of would figure out a way. And then I looked at the impact it would have on my family. And so, okay, I was active in Boy Scouts, as I mentioned before. And Boy Scouts was a good, safe place for me. That probably saved my life, too. My family obviously did. But school, people think, oh, you're reasonably smart. My grade point average was a D+. That's not B+, D+, mm-hmm. below C level, as I like to say. And because I had such a low self-esteem, and so when I went to college, though, I decided I was going to go downstate for college in the Middle Michigan, and I did well in college. Mm-hmm. I graduated in honors. I got out 2 degrees, and I got out in 3 years, and I thought, okay, I'm maybe not as stupid as I think. And so this number of years goes by, and I didn't realize the toll that it took on me. So I'm 66 now. When I was 48, I went to the Center for Creative Leadership in Colorado Springs, and it was a week-long course, and they evaluate you on different circumstances, how you lead and everything. At the end of the week, they meet with you, and they says, here's what we see with you, and here's some opportunities for you for growth. And this guy said, he was actually a psychologist, and he says, I think you'd benefit from mental health counseling. I says, what do you mean? And he says, no. He says, I don't know what it is. He says, I see some PTSD in your background. And so I went back and I called Roy Vineyard, who was the CEO of Asante. And I was on the board of Asante. And I know what you're thinking of mental health is, but you don't want to talk about it. And I was one of those people that you're just embarrassed to say that somebody said you should reach out. If my primary care doctor says, you got cancer, I'd go to an oncologist, no problem. I broadcast it, no problem. If I had a cardiac condition, psychiatry, no. And so I went and saw this Dr. Phillips in Medford at Rogue Regional, and he really a great doctor. He's a psychiatrist. He's still alive. He's like 95 now. And he changed my life. And I never realized from our employees, but at the dealership, I would lead by fear. And I was a real jerk as a boss. And some people probably still say I am. I don't know. But, I would get really angry, and I would scream at people. But then I saw, okay, and that was my reaction to it. And once he did it, not with medication, he did it with a lot of listening, and he gave me some exercises to do as far as relating with other people, and it worked. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that was something I continue onward. And so student mental health is something I'm working on. Actually, I'm trying to work on a project right now in Sault Ste. Marie, and I called them maybe about 2 weeks ago, and I called this Chippewa County Foundation, which I'm on the board of Four-Way Community Foundation as well. I'm going off actually in this end of this month because of term limits. But I would like to set up a fund with Christy and I for to help student mental health. Mm-hmm. And it would be, perpetual fund that goes on after we pass on. But the other thing I want to contribute is a King Charles Spaniel mm-hmm. in their counseling department. I don't know if they'll want one, but it's interesting. I've got a session set up, a Zoom call with the superintendent of schools from Sault Ste. Marie, as well as the principal of the high school, which is where the bullying took place. And I think it's at 10 o'clock next Wednesday. Wow. And I don't know how this is going to turn out, but my hope is that, they can, I think for me, if I would have had that therapy dog, it's cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever considered trying to reach out or contact the guy who caused you all this problem through high school?
I did, and it's a very unusual last name, and so so I can find it, and I found it, and then the next thing where I found it though was in the police reports, and it was domestic violence.
Oh, great.
So I thought, why bother? You know, and maybe there'll be that time. I don't know. I've never been back for a school reunion, and I got my 50th coming up in a few years. Whether I'll go back for that or not, I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but I don't know. But I see this opportunity to visit, you know, because one of the things that happened to me is I had an English teacher, and she was a really good friend, and so we did something on a Sunday, and I just happened to mention to her that I was getting bullied in school. And so the next morning, I was in a class, and I got paged to the principal's office. So I went down to the principal's office, and I don't think the principal handled it exactly real well, because what happened was he called. I told him the whole story, everything that was going on. I thought, okay, this would be a good way to go. Well, it didn't go well, because then the bullying even got worse, because the superintendent, or the principal, then went to that student and kind of narked me out, and so I just found a different way home on the streets. And so it was not a case of, I think they could have done a better job in that way, and I think we've come a long ways. We got a long ways to go.
50 years ago, that situation was handled much differently than it is nowadays.
Right.
It was more like, toughen up, Steve, get some thick skin type of thing.
You know, and Christy, my wife, was a first grade school teacher at Allendale Elementary, and we have many conversations about bullying and mental health, and she's there for me. I mean, she is she's a real compassionate person, and it's just amazing. Yeah.
I don't know anybody who's more compassionate than you, Steve. So
No, she's much more compassionate, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we have come a long way, and it's evolving. Lawton and I have a buddy who killed himself recently, and we're not sure why.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty fresh, but it is definitely disturbing. You know, mental health is definitely a huge issue in this country, and you're right. It's something that people don't want to talk about. People who have mental health are just people who are, you know, it's just, they just want to avoid that topic altogether, and it's not good.
No, I was talking to the Chippewa County Foundation, and where I went to school, they have like a freshman for one school, and then the upperclassmen another, and a student a few years ago committed suicide right in the path with a gun in front of the other students.
Yeah.
And so my thinking is whatever I can do in my life, and then beyond that, as far as to make it, you know, I think the thing I can do is treating people with compassion today and listen to their stories. And then from the next step then forward is, you know, after I'm gone, is to find ways to help people with funds and that type of thing. You can do some with money, but I think I can do a lot more, you know, with a therapy dog, for example. And for me, the therapy dog, when I put it, it's not about me at that point, it's about the dog.
Yeah.
And that really helps that situation. And I think, you know, for example, with the person, you know, I'm sorry to hear about your friend. That is really it's so difficult. And there's the impact on the friends as well as the family and that type of thing. And I can picture where that person's come from, though. I really can.
Yeah. It's a long story with this person, but a long backstory about, you know, why we think he did it, but it's a mystery, because it still doesn't make sense.
Right.
You know, and I don't think it will ever, because we won't ever have that clarity. But I guess I wish there were more people out there like you who are compassionate about this. I think that's what we need in today's world, is people who care about other people, care about their stories and where they've come from and all that kind of stuff. And so I commend you for that. Dan was working with Robin and I just on some business planning stuff a few weeks ago, and he asked this question about, what do you want your legacy to be? And what's funny is I thought of you at that time, because it's clear that you, with all the work that you do, you are going to leave behind a legacy, and you're setting an example for people in the future. And I'm honored to know you.